Okay, so let's resume from where we stopped. So we'll repeat this verse, Surah Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse number 140. Or do ye say that Abraham, Ismail, Isaac, Jacob, and the tribes were Jews or Christians? Say, do ye know better than Allah? Ah, who is more unjust than those who conceal the testimony they have from Allah? But Allah is not unmindful of what ye do. So this verse is actually a very important verse. What it essentially says is it speaks about some of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ismail alayhi salam, Ishaq alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, and the tribes, the 12 sons of Yaqub alayhi salam, and from each son, from their progeny, from among the offspring, uh, arose 12 tribes basically. So do you say these people, they were Jews or Christians? So why is this question asked is because now Jews or Christians, now they trace their scriptures to Musa alayhi salam. I mean, the Old Testament is the common book, the common part in the Bible which both the groups follow. So the Old Testament is basically the Torah, and a few other books. So do you say so, or do you say that I mean, this list is given and it is asked, they were Jews or Christians? So these were not Jews and Christians because these were people of earlier times, earlier than Musa alayhi salam. So why do you argue unnecessarily? So this is a basic theme that has been running for the last few verses. So it says, the verse continues. So let's read the verse again with this context. So the Jews and the Christians, Judaism and Christianity, Jews associated with Musa alayhi salam, Moses peace be upon him, and Christians associated with Jesus peace be upon him, Isa alayhi salam. So these people, Abraham, Ismail, Isaac, Jacob, and the tribes, so these were earlier than Musa alayhi salam. So that is why the question is asked, or do you say that Abraham, Ismail, Isaac, Jacob, and the tribes were Jews or Christians? Say, do ye know better than Allah? Ah, who is more unjust than those who conceal the testimony they have from Allah? But Allah is not unmindful of what you do. So this is argument that unless you be a Jew or a Christian, you're not guided. This is so baseless. The fallacy is highlighted through this particular verse. And then we proceed with verse number 141. That was a people that had passed away. They shall reap the fruit of what they did, and ye of what ye do. Ye shall not be asked about what they did. So here ends part 1, the what is referred to as Juz 1 of the Quran. But as I said, the Juz, the division of the Quran into Juz, is not logical, not rational. It's absolutely arbitrary. So there is no reason why a Juz should end over here. In any case, that's the division that is followed. So we made a note of that. So Juz number 2 starts over here and from verse number 142 onwards. And so we continue. As you can see from the story itself, there is a continuity. So there is no reason why this should be divided into separate Juz, except for the reason that it's a very big surah. But even that, it does not justify. The division is not really very logical, as I've been telling you again and again. So verse number 142, we read, the fools among the people will say, what hath turned them from the Qibla to which they were used? Say, to Allah belong the east and west. He guideth whom he will to a way that is straight. So this refers to the change of the Qibla. What hath turned them from the Qibla to which they were used? Say, to Allah belong both east and west. He guideth whom he will to a way that is straight. We'll come back to it a little later because this is again repeated a few verses later. We'll have the discussion then. So let's continue now. Thus have we made of you an ummah justly balanced, ummatan wasata. So an ummah justly balanced, that ye might be witnesses over the nations, and the messenger a witness over yourselves. So that's what is mentioned in this verse. And we appointed the Qibla to which thou wast used only to test those who follow the messenger from those who would turn on their heels from the faith. Indeed, it was a change momentous, except to those guided by Allah, and never would Allah make your faith of no effect. For Allah is to all people most surely full of kindness, most merciful. We see the turning of thy face for guidance to the heavens. Now shall we turn thee to a Qibla that shall please thee. Turn then thy face in the direction of the sacred mosque. This is Masjid al-Haram. That's the Kaaba. Turn then thy face in the direction of the sacred mosque. Wherever ye are, turn your faces in that direction. The people of the book know well that that is the truth from their Lord, nor is Allah unmindful of what they do. So, this is a very basic theme that is running in the Quran about. This is describing the period when basically now it's describing the interaction between the Muslims and the Jews during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So let us read a little bit further so that there is better clarity, and then I'll explain a few things. Even if thou were to bring the people of the book all the signs together, they would not follow thy Qibla, nor art thou going to follow their Qibla, nor indeed will they follow each other's Qibla. If thou after the knowledge hath reached thee were to follow their vain desires, then wert thou indeed clearly in the wrong. Now, what is, as I said, that the Qibla will be discussed or taken up again a little later. So, this is the verse I was referring to, verse number 145 of Surah Baqarah. So, let me explain to you at this moment what it is referring to. And in conjunction with the previous verse, things will become very clear. So, the Muslims, when they were in Makkah, so Jerusalem is towards to the north of Makkah. So when they were in Makkah, when the Muslims were in Makkah, so they used to face the Kaaba in such a way that they used to face both the Kaaba and Jerusalem, Baitul Maqdis, Masjid Aqsa. But once they were in Medina, now Medina was in between Makkah and Jerusalem. Once they were in Medina, they continued to pray in the direction of Jerusalem. So that was the instruction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until he changed the direction to a direction they were so desiring, that is, they wanted to face the Kaaba, as their Qibla. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finally gave them permission and he appointed Kaaba as the new Qibla for the Muslim Ummah. So that is why in the previous verse it is mentioned, now shall we turn thee to a Qibla that shall please thee. So while they were in Makkah, there was no problem. They could simultaneously face the Kaaba and Jerusalem. So as you can understand, this is Makkah, this is Medina, this is Jerusalem. So Makkah, you are standing this side of Makkah and you're facing the Kaaba, and you can also face Jerusalem. There is no point, no issues with that. But once you are in Medina, Kaaba is to the south and Jerusalem is to the north. So you cannot possibly face both simultaneously. It's impossible. So for a while, the practice of facing Jerusalem as the Qibla continued, and after 17 months, then the direction was changed and Kaaba was instructed to be the new Qibla for the Muslims, for the Muslim Ummah. So this is what is being referred to. And this portion is actually very interesting. It says, let me read it again. They would not follow thy Qibla, nor art thou going to follow their Qibla. Fine. So they would not follow thy Qibla. The Jews and the Christians, their Qibla is Jerusalem. They will not follow your Qibla, referring to the Kaaba. And you will not follow their Qibla. You will not follow Jerusalem as the Qibla now that it has been changed to Kaaba. Nor indeed will they follow each other's Qibla. This is very interesting. Nor indeed will they follow each other's Qibla. What does it mean? The Jews and the Christians, their Qibla, for both of them, their Qibla is Jerusalem. So what does it mean that nor indeed will they follow each other's Qibla? But once you enter Jerusalem, once you enter that Baitul Maqdis, Jerusalem, the Masjid Aqsa premises, which they call, or which they refer to as the Solomon's Temple, or basically they refer to as the Temple of Solomon. Once they are inside that, they face in two opposite directions. So this is what is being referred to over here. Nor indeed will they follow each other's Qibla. If thou after the knowledge hath reached thee were to follow their vain desires, then wert thou indeed clearly in the wrong. The people of the book know this as they know their own sons. So the people of the book, the Jews and the Christians, know this as they know their own sons. This actually refers to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that they know him as they know their own sons. But some of them conceal the truth which they themselves know. The truth is from thy Lord, so be not at all in doubt. To each is a goal to which Allah turns him, then strive together as in a race towards all that is good. Wheresoever ye are, Allah will bring you together, for Allah hath power over all things. From whensoever thou startest forth, turn thy face in the direction of the sacred mosque, that is Masjid al-Haram, that is the Kaaba. That is indeed the truth from thy Lord, and Allah is not unmindful of what ye do. So from whensoever thou startest forth, turn thy mosque in the direction of the sacred mosque, and wheresoever ye are, turn your face thither, that there be no ground of dispute against you among the people, except those of them that are bent on wickedness. So fear them not, but fear me, and that I may complete my favors on you, and ye may consent to be guided. A similar favor have ye already received, in that we have sent among you a messenger of your own, rehearsing to you our signs and purifying you, and instructing you in scripture and wisdom and in new knowledge. Then do ye remember me, I will remember you, be grateful to me, and reject not faith. O you who believe, seek help with patient perseverance and prayer, for God is with those who patiently persevere. This is a dua which we can recite. Inna Allah ma sabirin. This is not a dua, this is a statement sort of. Inna Allah ma sabirin. Verily Allah is with those who are patient. For God is with those who patiently persevere. And say not of those who are slain in the way of Allah, they are dead, nay, they are living, though ye perceive it not. Be sure we shall test you with something of fear and hunger, some loss in goods, lives, and the fruits of your toil. But give glad tidings to those who patiently persevere, who say when afflicted with calamity, to Allah we belong, and to Him is our return. So this is the statement, or this is this. Look at this part of this verse. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. This is what we recite when a person passes away, when a person dies. So this is a general statement which means to Allah we belong and to Him is our return. And this is applicable, and we can recite it at any moment, basically, not just in the occasion of death, even in the case of a misfortune happening or otherwise. This can be recited because the meaning will be true, irrespective of whether a person dies or whether a person uh, confronts a misfortune, whether a righteous person dies, whether a wicked person dies, whether a Muslim dies, whether a non-Muslim dies. Irrespective of that, the statement itself is going to remain true. To Allah we belong, and to Him is our return. So this is it. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. So this is verse number 156 of Surah Baqarah. So verse number 157 onwards, we continue. They are those on whom descend blessings from their Lord and mercy, and they are the ones that receive guidance. Behold, Safa and Marwa are among the symbols of Allah. So if those who visit the house in the season or at their home or at other times should compass them round, it is no sin in them. And if anyone obeyeth his own impulse to good, be sure that Allah is He who recognizeth and knoweth. Those who conceal the clear signs we have sent down and the guidance after we have made it clear for the people of the book, on them shall be Allah's curse and the curse of those entitled to curse, except those who repent and make amends and openly declare the truth. To them I turn, for I am of returning most merciful. Those who reject faith and die rejecting, on them is Allah's curse and the curse of angels and all of mankind, and of all mankind. They will abide therein, their penalty will not be lightened, nor will respite be their lot. And your God is one God. There is no God but He, most gracious, most merciful. Behold, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, again the word is samawat and earth, so let's keep it that way. When we come to the explanation in Surah Kahf and in Surah Anbiya, we'll do that. Behold, in the creation of the samawat and the earth, in the alternation of the night and the day, in the sailing of the ships through the ocean for the profit of mankind, in the rain which Allah sends down from the skies, and the life which He gives therewith to an earth that is dead, in the beasts of all kinds that He scatters through the earth, in the change of the wind, in the change of the winds and the clouds which they trail like the slaves between the sky and the earth. Here indeed are signs for a people that are wise. Uh, one point or one thing I may note it for you is this section where it is mentioned the beasts of all kinds that it scatters through the earth. The word used is dabba. Uh, so the word used is dabba, and basically uh, sometimes certain meanings have been extracted and this verse is then interpreted uh, to refer to alien life. Now, alien life should not, I mean, whenever you hear about the term alien, the image of an ET in a Steven Spielberg film, that is not the image that should come to your mind. It is a life form which is different from our life forms. And is this possible? It's very much possible. It's not beyond the capacity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to create other intelligent life forms. It's not beyond His capacity. So, in the beasts of all kinds that He scatters through the earth, uh, basically from this, basically from this, that particular meaning has been sometimes extracted or interpreted about alien life. So we do not eliminate the possibility, but that is, I mean, that this is a statement in the Quran, and we keep it as it is. There is not much that we need to investigate into this, because even if there is an alien life, intelligent life form, uh, we should not overly concern ourselves with it, because that does not impact our lives or our salvation. So that in no way impacts our life and our law. So basically that's that, and we leave it at that, and we'll proceed from here on. Yet there are men who take for worship others besides Allah as equal with Allah. They love them as they should love Allah. But those of faith are overflowing in their love for Allah. If only the unrighteous should see, behold, they would see the punishment, that to Allah belongs all power, and Allah will strongly enforce the punishment. Then would those who are followed clearly clear themselves of those who follow them. They would see the chastisement, and all relations between them would be cut off. And those who followed would say, if only we had one more chance, we would clear ourselves of them as they have cleared themselves of us. Thus will Allah show them the fruits of their deeds as nothing but regrets, nor will there be a way for them out of the fire. So now this is describing the scenario on the day of judgment. Now, it's speaking about the leaders who misled masses, and it's also speaking about the masses who are misled. So those who misled masses of people, the leaders, will disown them. They will say that, why do you have to follow us? If we deviated you, why did you have to follow us? So now these people will say, those who followed and hence erred, say, if only we had a chance, we would have never followed you. If only we had one more chance, we'd clear ourselves of them as they have cleared ourselves of us. But then on that day, it's already too late. So this is actually a very severe warning for all of us to think for ourselves and not to be dependent blindly on anyone. A blind faith is tremendously harmful, as this verse clarifies. With our understanding and with our studies, with our research, with all of this, we can have a better understanding of the purpose of life, basically. And Islam helps us in our quest to understand the purpose of life. And the verse continues, and the passage and the chapter continues. So this is what we have explained for this particular verse, and it continues. O ye people, eat of what is on earth lawful and good, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan, for he is an avowed enemy. For he commands you what is evil and shameful, and that ye should say of Allah that of which ye have no knowledge. When it is said to them, follow what Allah hath revealed, they say, nay, we shall follow the ways of our fathers. What? Even though their fathers were void of wisdom and guidance? So this is a question which we all should ask ourselves. You don't have to bother about asking this question of others. You just bother about yourselves. What it says is, when it is said to them, follow what Allah hath revealed, they say, no, we shall follow the ways of our fathers, of our forefathers. So how many of us are deviated because we stick to this methodology? No, we will continue to follow the ways of our fathers and forefathers. Were they wrong? This is the question we ask. Were they wrong? Were our scholars wrong? Is so many of our scholars wrong? Is so many of our religious leaders wrong? Is so many of our religious leaders wrong? I mean, this is a question Muslims should ask of themselves. And Muslims are having this verse in front of them. They should take advantage of this verse. And this is equally applicable to non Muslims as well. And they should think for a while, what are they doing with their lives? What is the purpose of life? What should they do? And an holistic study of even their scriptures will eventually lead them to the correct understanding of Islam, and from then they can follow the Quran. It is so easy for them. So this is what he said, nay, we shall follow the ways of our forefathers. What does the Quran say? Does the Quran say, oh fantastic, it's something very good, you should follow your forefathers? No, the Quran says, what? Even though their fathers were void of wisdom and guidance? So most of human beings are falling into error because of single most important reason, which is leading to their downfall, that their belief that we will continue to follow the ways of our fathers and forefathers. So this is something very severe, and we should all think, contemplate about this issue. Let us continue. The parable of those who reject faith is as if one were to shout like a goat herd to things that listen to nothing but calls and cries, deaf, dumb, and blind. They're void of wisdom. O you who believe, eat of the good things that we have provided for you, and be grateful to Allah if it is Him you worship. He hath only forbidden you dead meat, and blood, and the flesh of swine, and that on which any other name hath been invoked besides that of Allah. But if one is forced by necessity, without wilful disobedience, nor transgressing due limits, then is he guiltless. For Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. Those who conceal Allah's revelations in the book and purchase for them a miserable profit, they swallow into themselves not but fire. Allah will not address them on the day of resurrection, nor purify them. Grievous will be their chastisement. They are the ones who buy error in place of guidance and torment in place of forgiveness. Ah, what boldness they show for the fire! Their doom is because Allah sent down the book in truth, but those who seek causes of dispute in the book are in a schism far from the purpose. It is not righteousness that ye turn your faces towards east or west, but it is righteousness to believe in Allah and the last day, and the angels, and the book, and the messengers, to spend of your substance out of love for Him, for your kin, for orphans, for the needy, for the wayfarer, for those who ask, and for the ransom of slaves, to be steadfast in prayer and give zakat, to fulfill the contracts which ye have made, and to be firm and patient in pain or suffering and adversity. And throughout all periods of panic, such are the people of truth, the God-fearing. So here Allah lists the criteria of a good human being, a good believer. It's not just enough for him to believe, which he should, and what he should believe in is also mentioned in this verse. He should believe in Allah and the last day and the angels and the book and the messengers. All of these are mentioned, but in addition, the things that are expected of him, required of him, are also mentioned. So this is the verse which gives a blueprint for how a good human being should be. O you believe, the law of equality is prescribed to you in cases of murder, the free for the free, the slave for the slave, the woman for the woman. But if any remission is made by the brother of the slain, then grant any reasonable demand, and compensate him with handsome gratitude. This is a concession and a mercy from your Lord. After this, whoever exceeds the limits shall be in grave chastisement. In the law of equality, there is saving of life to you, O ye men of understanding, that ye may restrain yourselves. It is prescribed when death approaches any of you, if he leave any goods, that he make a bequest to parents and next of kin, according to reasonable usage. This is due from the God fearing. Basically, the concept of a will, some scholars or some people, they extract this concept from this particular verse of the Quran, Surah Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse number 180. But after the law of inheritance is revealed in Surah Nisa, chapter 4, in the early verses, verses 11, 12, and verse 176, basically, uh, uh, this is no more required, because you cannot now make a will according to your whims and fancies. You have to follow the instructions given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this can possibly act as an example of a verse which is abrogated, as I said, and the Quran itself clarifies, as we have read through and explained, that there is no concept of abrogation in the Quran, that a verse is totally eliminated or done away with. But what did Allah say at that time? That we substitute something better or similar. So the law of inheritance, as is the case for many of the injunctions in the Quran, for example, the prohibition of alcohol, it was in stages so that it's easy on the society to follow and implement the laws. For example, even for the case of riba or interest or usury, riba is both interest and usury. It's not just usury. It's riba means interest, so it includes usury as well. So if it prohibits interest, it should prohibit usury, which is high rates of interest. So this is one good example for the abrogation, but it does not mean that this has become obsolete. What it means is that Allah substituted for this law something better in exchange for this. And it continues, if anyone changes the bequest after hearing it, the guilt shall be on those who make the change, for Allah hears and knows all things. But if anyone fears partiality or wrongdoing on the part of the testator, and brings about a settlement among the parties concerned, there is no wrong in him, for Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. O you who believe, fasting is prescribed to you. So this is the start of a section number 23. As I said, each chapter is again divided into sections, which is also called ruku. So rukus. So this is section 23 and verse number 183. So there are three consecutive verses which discuss about Ramadan and fasting. So this is important for us if we are to gain some information about Ramadan and fasting. So verse number 183 and three consecutive verses will follow, each discussing about the same aspect, the same issue about Ramadan and fasting. So verses 183, 184, 185. So 183, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, that you may learn self-restraint. So here the wisdom for fasting is being mentioned. So the first thing is not mentioned what is the period of fasting or other aspects, but what is mentioned is fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you. So fasting is not something which is unique for this ummah. It has always existed. It's always existed. Even a 1 month fast has existed. Even the so-called apparent non-Abrahamic faiths such as Hinduism, etc., there is a prescribed 1 month fasting as well. So this is one proof in addition to numerous proofs and logical deductions where some scholars are of the opinion that the Sabi'ins mentioned in the Quran actually refer to the Hindus, the Hindu race. And they have a strong case, they have a strong argument when they opine that. So fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you. But why has fasting been prescribed in the first place? So the first verse, verse 183, gives us the reason behind it, that ye may learn self-restraint. So this is the wisdom behind fasting. Fasting, in verse number 184, fasting for a fixed number of days. But if any of you is ill or on a journey, the prescribed number should be made up from days later. For those who can do it with hardship is a ransom, the feeding of one that is indigent, but if he but he that will give more of his own free will, it is better for him. And it is better for you that ye fast, if ye only knew. Now, a lot of things are mentioned in verse number 184 actually. So let us read it again, part by part, bit by bit. Fasting for a fixed number of days. That fixed number of days is 30, 29 or 30, depending on the duration of the lunar month, which can either be of 29 days or 30 days. But if any of you is ill or on a journey, so there is an exception for two cases. If you're ill or on a journey, what you can do is the prescribed number should be made up from days later. So at that time, if you're ill or on a journey, then fasting is not compulsory for you on those days, but then you have to make up for the missed fast later on. For those who can do it with hardship is a ransom. I mean, those who will not be able to fast, there is a ransom, there is a way out. What is the way out? The feeding of one that is indigent. So feeding of the poor. But he that will give more of his own free will, it is better for him. And it is better for you that you fast. The last part is also very important. It is better for you that you fast. Why? If you only knew. Today we have come to know that so many immense medical benefits of fasting. At that time it was not known. So it says, rightly says, that it is better that you fast if you only knew. So today we have come to know about the immense medical benefits of fasting as well. Verse number 185. This is a verse which is very important actually. In fact, all verses are important, but this is important when we relate it to specific to Ramadan and fasting. Ramadan is the month in which was sent down the Quran as a guide to mankind, also clear signs for guidance and judgment between right and wrong. So every one of you who is present at his home during that month should spend it in fasting. But if anyone is ill or on a journey, the prescribed period should be made up by days later. Allah intends every facility for you. He does not want to put you to difficulties. He wants you to complete the prescribed period and to glorify Him in that He has guided you. And perchance He shall be grateful. So this is a verse. Shahru Ramazan al-unzila fihi al-Quran hudal lin-nas. So let us concentrate on this part. Unzila. Now, we just want to highlight an interesting aspect. So, when was the Quran revealed? This verse suggests the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan, or specifically in the night of Al-Qadr, in the night of Al-Qadr. But we also know that the Quran was revealed in parts over a period of some 22-23 years to the Prophet ﷺ, from his age about 39-40 to right up to his death when he was aged 62 to 63 roughly. So is this a contradiction? No, there is no contradiction. So from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran was brought down to a place, to a particular place, usually referred to as Allahul Mahfuz, and then from there, part by part, the Quran was revealed. So the entire bringing down of the Quran was done on a single night. So in the month of Ramadan. So Anzala is the word for that. Anzala, to reveal the entire thing. And Nazzala, which is present in verses such as Surah Nahl, chapter 16, Nahl, chapter 16, verse 89, etc. Nazzala means to reveal it in parts. So this verse refers to the bringing down of the Quran at one go, in its entirety. And from there, Jibreel al-Islam would bring the Quran to Prophet ﷺ upon the instruction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, part by part. Sometimes verse by verse, sometimes chapter by chapter. So this, I wanted to clarify the difference between the two terms, Anzala and Nazzala. So here the word Anzala is used, which means to bring down or to reveal in its entirety. And this happened on a single night, basically on the night of Al-Qadr, Laylatul Qadr, and The night of Al-Qadr is happens to be in the month of Ramadan. So this is speaking about that incident. And the other thing, bring it bit by bit and part by part, that itself took over a period of 20 to 23 years. So that's, I thought, something which is important by way of clarification. So let's continue. When my servants ask thee concerning me, I am indeed close to them. I respond to the prayer of every suppliant when he calleth on me. Let them also with a will listen to my call and believe in me, that they may walk in the right way. Permitted to you on the night of the fast is the approach to your wives. They are your garments, and ye are their garments. Allah knoweth what ye used to do secretly among yourselves. But he turned to you and forgave you. So now associate with them and seek what Allah hath ordained for you. And eat and drink until the white thread of dawn appear to you distinct from its black thread. Then complete your fast till the night appears. But do not associate with your wives while ye are in retreat in the mosques. Those are limits set by Allah. Approach not night thereto. Thus doth Allah make clear his signs to men, that they may learn self-restraint. So this is actually a very interesting verse. In fact, all verses are important. So here it's making some statements, and then the interesting part, what I want to focus on, is about the suhoor. Basically, Allah hath ordained for you, and eat and drink until the white thread of dawn appear to you distinct from its black thread. Now, today it may not make any sense to most of us, because we are not in the habit of following the observational method, which is so easy. Observation is so easy. I mean, you just observe and you know. But today we are so heavily dependent on timetables, Ramadan timetables, which is a fitna basically, Ramadan timetables. And different mosques will publish their own timetables, and then people will quarrel with each other, fight with each other, argue with each other as to which is correct. None of it is required if we have a little skill, not much, very little skill. Basically, when is Fajr time? So you're allowed to eat suhoor till before Fajr. But once Fajr time starts, then the suhoor time ends. It's so simple. Now, Fajr time is not determined by watches and clocks. Fajr time is not determined by timetables, Ramadan timetables. It's not. So basically, there is something called the two dawns, the first dawn and the second dawn. Or better still, we can refer to as the false dawn and the true dawn. The false dawn is called the Subha Kazib. Subha Kazib. Kazib means false. Subha Kazib. So that is when a ray of light rises vertically. And Subha Sadiq is the time when that ray of, that light spreads over the horizon. So that is Subha Sadiq. Once that light starts to spread over the horizon, horizontally, then it's called Subha Sadiq. Sadiq means true. Subha Sadiq, the true dawn. So the true dawn is the time for the Fajr. So till that time is your suhoor time. So if we are able to observe these things, it becomes so easy for us. The timetables are not required, the watches and the clocks are not required. And again, then complete your fast till the night appears. Now, this is about the iftar. First there is suhoor, and then there is iftar. So this one cycle of suhoor and iftar will complete one fasting period. Till night appears. Till night appears. Now, what does it mean? Some people delay it to such an extent that until there is darkness, they will not break their fast. Until the reddish glow after the sunset completely disappears and there is complete darkness, they delay the fast to that extent. What does night in this case refer to? The word used is lel. So we have to understand these things. See, we intend to make a separate video discussing about the concept of time in Islam, about day in Islam, about month in Islam, about year in Islam. We'll have to do a separate video. But to state it in very brief, let me just state in this way. Yom is a day. Now, let us first use the English terminology, and then you will appreciate the superiority of the Arabic in its terminology and the deficiency or the limitations of the English language. So, a day is equal to day plus night. Day is equal to day plus night. You've already understood the limitation. A day in the English language can both mean the 24-hour cycle, the 24-hour period. It can also mean the daytime. So day is equal to day plus night. But when it comes to Arabic, there are separate words to indicate the separate terms. So one yom is equal to nahar plus layl, or layl plus nahar. So one yom means a day, a 24-hour cycle is equal to, what is it equal to? Layl, night, plus nahar, that is daytime. Yom is equal to layl plus nahar. Now it makes sense. A is equal to B plus C. Now A is equal to A plus B makes no sense. A is equal to B plus C makes sense. So that's what it is. So what is Layl? Layl is basically that period when the sun sets. It doesn't have to be dark. It's not English. It's not the English language that night means dark. No, it's not. Night, Layl actually starts when the sun sets. That's Layl. And Nahar, actually, it should start with the Subah Sadiq, Fajr time. That's what it means. So you should fast till Layl. What does it mean? Till sunset. Once the sun sets, then you can break your fast. You should break your fast rather. Now let us also discuss about this issue, which is an issue over which Muslims fight and argue and quarrel with each other. What is the correct time for iftar? Now people will say 6:30, some will say 6:25, some will say 6:35 p.m. and they will fight with each other. I say take all the three timetables, Ramadan timetables published and distributed the different masjids or committees or organizations, and tear them apart and throw it away. It's not required. Islam is so simple. Islam is so simple that it's completely based on observations. The sun sets, it's iftar time. You need not look at any of the timetables. The sun sets, it's iftar time. How easy can it be? So that is what it speaks about. And it also speaks about your relationships with your wives, that previously Allah says that I knew what you used to do previously, so I have forgiven you. So now it is actually allowed for you, when it is allowed for you to have food and drink, it's also allowed for you to approach your wives. So in that context, it mentions towards the end of this verse, but do not associate with your wives while ye are in retreat in the mosque. During itikaf, don't do so. These are the limits set by Allah. So, and why all of these? That they may learn self-restraint. Again, the same logic is repeated. So let's continue. And do not eat up your property among yourselves for vanities, nor use it as bait for the judges, with the intent that ye may eat up wrongfully and knowingly a little of other people's property. They ask thee concerning the new moons. Say, they are but signs to mark fixed periods of time in the affairs of men, and for pilgrimage. It is no virtue if you enter your houses from the back. It is a virtue if you fear Allah. Enter houses through the proper doors, and fear Allah that you may prosper. Now, about this aspect about the calculation of months and the lunar calendar and the Islamic calendar, we've also discussed in our Ramadan lecture series. So you can refer to that for more details, and that obviously gives more details. I think that will help you. So we are not explaining this again, but requesting you to go back to that particular series where the explanation of the Islamic lunar calendar system is explained in details. Fight in the cause of Allah. The word used is qital. Fight in the cause of Allah those who fight you, but do not transgress limits, for Allah loveth not transgressors. So fight in the cause of Allah those who fight you. If they are fighting you, you should fight back. So the word used is qital. And slay them wherever ye catch them, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. For persecution is worse than slaughter. But fight them not at the sacred mosque, unless they first fight you there. But if they fight you, slay them. Such is the reward of those who reject faith. Now, this is a verse which the non-Muslims use to malign Islam. But what does it say? It says, and slay them wherever ye catch them, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. So the context is from the previous verse where it says the fight in the cause of Allah, those who fight you. You just don't take a sword and just go on a killing spree. No, that happens in America. You can see that every day, but that's not Islam. Only if they're fighting you, you're allowed to fight back. And in that situation, what is now being prescribed is and slay them because they're fighting you. So when you're fighting back, what you should do? You should kiss them. So you should slay them wherever you catch them because otherwise they are going to kill you and turn them out from where they have turned you out. Now, this was a place, this is the classic example of the conflict in Palestine. They have turned you out. So what do? You kiss them, you welcome them. So this is what is mentioned, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. For persecution is worse than slaughter. Slaughter is not recommended at all. This will come in verse 32 of Surah Ma'idah, chapter number 5, when we come to that passage. So slaughter is not recommended in Islam at all. It's highly prohibited in Islam. But this is for persecution is worse than slaughter, but it's allowed only in certain extreme cases, such as this one. So they are fighting you back and they're going to kill you. What you do in that, in self-defense, you're fighting back. And if you don't kill them, they will kill you. So this is an extreme situation which is being described. It's not everyday life that is being described. The mistake that the non-Muslims are making is they consider this to be the rule, that every Muslim, they take a sword or take a gun and they go on a killing spree. This is not Islam at all. This is their absolute misunderstanding of Islam. And it gives the clarification why you're allowed to kill them or fight back. It says, for persecution is worse than slaughter. They're persecuting you. For persecution is worse than slaughter. But fight them not at the sacred mosque. Don't fight in Masjid al-Haram unless they first fight you there. But if they fight you, slay them. Such is the reward of those who reject faith. But if they cease, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. But if they cease to fight, what you should do? Continue fighting? No. You should cease as well, because Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. And fight them on until there is no more persecution and the religion becomes Allah's. But if they cease, let there be no hostility except to those who practice oppression. Now, this verse also needs a little explanation, and it says, and fight them until there is no more persecution and the religion becomes Allah's. This does not mean that you force each and every citizen to accept Islam. This does not mean so, because in Surah Al-Baqarah itself, in chapter 2 itself, when we read verse number 256, it will clarify that La ikraha fid din, there is no compulsion in religion. The religion becomes Allah's means that you create a state where you have freedom of practicing your faith. If I am not allowed to practice my faith, that's oppression. You create an environment where you're allowed to practice your faith, and the people of the other faiths also have their rights to practice their faiths. That's what is meant by the religion becomes Allah's. So and fight them on until there is no more persecution and the religion becomes Allah's. So this is the explanation for this verse. But if they cease, let there be no hostility except to those who practice oppression. The prohibited month, for the prohibited month. And so, for all things prohibited, there is the law of equality. If then anyone transgresses the prohibition against you, transgress ye likewise against him. But fear Allah, and know that Allah is with those who restrain themselves. And spend of your substance in the cause of Allah, and make not your hands contribute to your own destruction. And make not your hands contribute to your destruction. But do good, for Allah loveth those who do good. So this verse number 195, is important for a number of reasons. It says, and make not your own hands contribute to your destruction. So this is a verse from which it is derived that suicide is prohibited, which is also present in the hadith texts as well, that suicide is prohibited. slow poisoning, which will eventually lead to a death, is also prohibited as an extension of the understanding from derived from this verse. So, based on this verse, some scholars are of the opinion that smoking is prohibited in Islam, and I'm of the opinion uh, of that opinion as well, that smoking is prohibited in Islam. Now, there is nowhere in the Quran which directly states that smoking is prohibited. Alcohol is prohibited is mentioned in several places in the Quran, but smoking is prohibited is not mentioned. But it is prohibited because of the derived understanding. It's a fiqh issue basically. It's a jurisprudence issue basically, and the understanding is derived from this particular verse. Surah Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse number 195. Verse number 196 continues, and complete the Hajj or Umrah in the service of Allah. But if ye are prevented from completing it, sending an offering for sacrifice, such as ye may find, and do not shave your heads until the offering reaches the place of sacrifice. And if any of you is ill or has an ailment in his scalp necessitating shaving, he should in compensation either fast or feed the poor or offer sacrifice. And when ye are in peaceful conditions, again, if anyone wishes to continue the Umrah onto the Hajj, he must make an offering such as he can afford. But if he cannot afford it, he should fast 3 days during the Hajj and 7 days on his return, making 10 days in all. This is for those whose household is not in the precincts of the sacred mosque. And fear Allah and know that Allah is strict in punishment. For Hajj are the months well known. If anyone undertakes that duty therein, let there be no obscenity, no wickedness, nor wrangling in the Hajj. And whatever good ye do, be sure Allah knoweth it, and take a provision with you for the journey. But the best of provisions is right conduct. So fear me, O ye that are wise. It is no crime in you if ye seek of the bounty of your Lord during pilgrimage. Then, when ye pour down from Mount Arafat, celebrate the praises of Allah at the sacred monument, and celebrate His praises as He has directed you, even though before this ye went astray. Then return from the place whence it is usual for the multitude so to do, and ask for Allah's forgiveness, for Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. So when ye have accomplished your rites, celebrate the praises of Allah as ye used to celebrate the praises of your fathers, yea, with far more heart and soul. There are men who say, Our Lord, give us thy bounties in this world, but they will have no portion in the hereafter. And there are men who say, Our Lord, give us good in this world and good in the hereafter, and save us from the torment of the fire. To these will be allotted what they have earned, and Allah is quick in account. Remember Allah during the appointed days. But if anyone hastens to leave in 2 days, there is no blame on him. And if anyone stays on, there is no blame on him, if his aim is to do right. Then fear Allah and know that ye will surely be gathered unto him. There is the type of man whose speech about this world's life may dazzle thee, and he calls Allah to witness about what is in his heart, yet is he the most contentious of enemies. This is a very important verse, and it's a very severe warning for all of us to reflect upon. Yet he is the most contentious of enemies. What does this verse say? There is the type of man whose speech about this world's life may dazzle thee. So their speech about this world's life will dazzle you. So what you should do, and he calls Allah to witness. So these will be Muslims, and he calls to Allah to witness about what is in his heart. Yet he is the most contentious of enemies. So we must be careful. We must have the understanding of from whom to take our understanding of the deen. With so much confusion around, it's not an easy task at all. It's not an easy task at all. And to make it more complicated, to make the situation, the scenario more complicated, we are also informed that 999 out of every 1,000 people will go to hellfire. So only 1 in 1,000 is saved from the fire of hell. So in this massively complex scenario, our task is even more immensely complex. So what we should do is we should try to be in that one out of that 1000. That should be our objective, not the parameter to judge a person, a scholar, is not his dazzling speeches. It is whether or not he is giving you the correct information or not. This should be the parameter. When he turns his back, his aim everywhere is to spread mischief. The problem is, many of these speakers or scholars themselves are not aware that they are causing fitna. They are the mischief makers. They are totally unaware. And this will also be clarified in Surah Kahf, chapter number 18, where this theme will return in that surah towards the end of the chapter in the last 10 verses, where we will discuss this issue once again. The problem is they themselves, sometimes they are not aware that they have no understanding of the religion and they are causing fitna, they are causing mischief. Sometimes they do, sometimes they are the conspirators, but at other times they themselves are totally unaware that by their acts, by their speeches, by their lectures, they're causing more harm than good. When he turns his back, his aim everywhere is to spread mischief through the earth and destroy crops and progeny, but Allah loveth not mischief. When it is said to them, Fear Allah, he is led by arrogance to more crime. Even for him is hell an evil bed indeed to lie on. And there is the type of man who gives his life to earn the pleasure of Allah, and Allah is full of kindness to his devotees. O you who believe, enter into Islam wholeheartedly, and follow not the footsteps of the Satan, for he is to you an avowed enemy. If ye backslide after the clear signs have come to you, then know that Allah is exalted in power, wise. Will they wait until Allah comes to them in canopies of clouds, with angels in his train? And the question is thus settled. But to Allah do all questions go back for decision. Ask the children of Israel, how many clear signs we have sent them, but if anyone after Allah's favor has come to him substitutes something else, Allah is strict in punishment. The life of this world is alluring to those who reject faith, and they scoff at those who believe, but the righteous will be above them on the day of resurrection. For Allah bestows his abundance without measure on whom he will. Mankind was one single nation, and Allah sent messengers with glad tidings and warnings, and with them he sent the book and truth to judge between people in matters wherein they differed. But the people of the book, after the clear signs came to them, did not differ among themselves except through selfish contumacy. Allah, by his grace, guided the believers to the truth concerning that wherein they differed. For Allah guides whom he will to a path that is straight. Or do you think that ye shall enter the garden of bliss without such trials as came to those who passed away before you? They encountered suffering and adversity and were so shaken in spirit that even the messenger and those of faith who were with him cried, When will come the help of Allah? Ah, verily the help of Allah is always near. This is a very, very important verse for the reasons we will now explain. This is Surah Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse number 214. The first part of the verse. Or do you think that ye shall enter the garden of bliss without such trials as came to those who passed away before you? Do you think you will enter the garden, that the paradise, Jannah, is so easy that you will enter it without any trials? As came to those passed away before you, such trials as people of the past have been tested with. Now, who are the people being referred to in this verse? The first thing that comes to mind is that of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, who had to endure a lot of hardships during their time. This is the first thought that comes to our mind. But think again, whom was the Quran being revealed to? It was being revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, and the first addressees of the Quran, so to say, were the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. I mean, to the Arabs, some of whom who accepted Islam and went on to become the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is being said to them. Today we think it refers to them, but when they were hearing these verses, what did they interpret it as. It cannot refer to them because they're present. It refers to the people before them. So, however much the hardships the companions of the Prophet ﷺ had to endure, the hardships endured by the people of the earlier generations, earlier Muslims, were even more. Now, this is remarkable. And this is also remarkable because many scholars who explain this verse, they explain it referring to the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, this is not something which we expect of our scholars in the first place. So the correct understanding is the hardships that the people of the earlier generations, of the earlier communities, of the ummah of the previous prophets, that they had to endure is nothing comparable to the hardships that we endure today. Even it's not even comparable to the hardships which the companions of the Prophet ﷺ had to endure. So their hardship is even more greater, much more greater than that. So this is something I pointed out. I think this is going to be helpful if you think about it. So whenever there is some issue, we grumble about it, we are distressed by it. But think about this verse for your solace. They ask thee what they should spend in charity. Say, whatever wealth is spent that is good is for parents and kindred and orphans and those in want and for wayfarers. And whatever you do that is good, Allah knoweth it well. Fighting is prescribed upon you, and ye dislike it, but it is possible that ye dislike a thing which is good for you, and that ye love a thing which is bad for you. But Allah knoweth, and ye know not. Now, this fighting is not anywhere and everywhere. And one of the occasions when the situation can arise was explained a little early in the verse in this chapter itself. So for similar cases, this verse is applicable. Fighting is prescribed upon you, and you dislike it, but it is possible that you dislike a thing which is good for you, and that ye love a thing which is bad for you. But Allah knoweth, and ye know not. They ask thee concerning fighting in the prohibited month. Say, fighting therein is a grave offense, but graver is it in the sight of Allah to prevent access to the path of Allah, to deny Him, to prevent access to the sacred mosque and drive out its members. Tumult and oppression are worse than slaughter, nor will they cease fighting you until they turn you back from your faith, if they can. And if any of you turn back from their faith and die in unbelief, their works will bear no fruit in this life and in the hereafter. They will be companions of the fire and will abide therein. Those who believed and those who suffered exile and fought and strove and struggled in the path of Allah, they have the hope of the mercy of Allah, and Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. They ask thee concerning wine and gambling. Say, in them is great sin and some profit for men, but the sin is greater than the profit. They ask thee how much they are to spend. Say, what is beyond your needs? Thus doth Allah make clear to you His signs in order that ye may consider. This is actually a very important verse number 219. So today there are proponents of wine and alcohol. They say it's good for health. There are health benefits associated with it. What does the Quran have to say about the subject? And they criticize that Muslims, they prohibit alcohol, but there is benefit in it. So this is not something we are unaware. What the Quran clarifies is in them is great sin and some profit. There is some profit in it, some benefit in it, but there is a great sin for men, but the sin is greater than the profit, and hence it is because of this reason alcohol is prohibited in Islam. And then it speaks about, and they ask thee how much they are to spend. Say, what is beyond your needs, spend. This is not zakat, this is infaq. This is actually a higher level of your belief, where you actually give away everything what is beyond your need. So it's very difficult to achieve that. It's not compulsory, but it is what is what gives you a very high status in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is beyond your needs? It's very difficult to implement this, but this is, if you want to reach that high status in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is what is recommended for you. So this is what would be called as infaq. Zakat is compulsory. Now, someone who does not pay zakat, it's a major sin. But infaq is not compulsory; it is recommended, or uh, it will not just limit you to a Muslim, but it'll elevate you to the status of a mu'min, not even a mu'min, a muhsin, and even if there are categories in muhsin, to the highest category of muhsin. So that's something. I know that this is something very difficult for all of us, for most of us, to think on these terms, that we should spend everything what is not beyond our needs. So, but if you want to achieve that sort of a status in the sight of Allah, this is what you should do. Okay, let's proceed. Their bearings on this life and the hereafter. They ask the concerning orphans, say the best thing to do is what is good, what is for their good. If you mix their affairs with yours, they are your brethren. But Allah knows a man who means mischief from the man who means good. And if Allah had wished, He could have put you into difficulties. He is indeed exalted in power wise. Do not marry unbelieving woman. Do not marry unbelieving woman until they believe. A slave woman who believes is better than an unbelieving woman, even though she allure you. Nor marry your girls to unbelievers until they believe. A man slave who believes is better than an unbeliever, even though he allure you. Unbelievers do but beckon you to the fire, but Allah beckons by His grace to the garden of bliss and forgiveness, and makes His signs clear to mankind, that they may receive admonition. So this is about the marriage laws in Islam, that you are prohibited, a Muslim man or woman is prohibited from marrying a, uh, a non-Muslim man or woman. I mean, for a man it's a woman, and for a woman it's a man. I'm not talking about man, man, and woman, woman. Okay. So the word used is mushrik. So a Muslim man is not allowed to marry a mushrika woman. A Muslima a woman is not allowed to marry a mushrik man. So this is the verse. They ask the concerning women's courses, say they are a hurt and a pollution. So keep away from women in their courses, and do not approach them until they are clean. But when they have purified themselves, ye may approach them as ordained for you by Allah. For Allah loves those who turn to Him constantly, and He loves those who keep themselves pure and clean. Your wives are a tilth unto you, so approach your tilth when or how you will. But do some good act for your souls beforehand, and fear Allah, and know that ye are to meet Him in the hereafter, and give these good tidings to those who believe. And make not Allah's name an excuse in your oaths against doing good, or acting rightly, or making peace between persons, for Allah is one who heareth and knoweth all things. Allah will not call you to account for thoughtlessness in your oaths, but for the intention in your hearts, and He is oft forgiving, most forbearing. For those who take an oath for abstention from their wives, a waiting for 4 months is ordained. If they if then they return, if then they return, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. But if their intention is firm for divorce, Allah heareth and knoweth all things. Now, this passage and the next few verses, it's speaking about the divorce issues in Islam, uh, the talaq issues in Islam, and there is a lot of confusion regarding the concept of talaq in Islam. Let's read the entire passage, and then I'll try to make it easy for you to understand. Divorced women shall wait concerning themselves for 3 monthly periods, and it is not lawful for them to hide what Allah hath created in their wombs, if they have faith in Allah and the last day. And the husbands have the better right to take them back in that period, if they wish for reconciliation. And women shall have rights similar to the rights against them, according to what is equitable, but men have a degree over them, and Allah is exalted in power wise. A divorce is only permissible twice. After that, the parties should either hold together on equitable terms or separate with kindness. It is not lawful for you, men, to take back any of your gifts from your wives, except when both parties fear that they would be unable to keep the limits ordained by Allah. If ye judges do indeed fear that they would be unable to keep the limits ordained by Allah, there is no blame on either of them if she gives something for her freedom. These are the limits ordained by Allah. So do not transgress them. If any do transgress the limits ordained by Allah, such persons wrong themselves as well as others. So if a husband divorces his wife irrevocably, that is 3 times, he cannot after that remarry until after she has married another husband and he has divorced her. In that case, there is no blame on either of them if they reunite, provided they feel that they can keep the limits ordained by Allah. Such are the limits ordained by Allah, which He makes plain to those who know. When you divorce women and they are about to fulfill the term of their iddah, either take them back on equitable terms or set them free on equitable terms, but do not take them back to injure them or to take undue advantage. If anyone does that, he wrongs his own soul. Do not treat Allah's signs as a jest, but solemnly rehearse Allah's favors on you, and the fact that He sent down to you the book and wisdom for your instruction, and fear Allah, and know that Allah is well acquainted with all things. When you divorce women and they fulfill the term of their iddah, do not prevent them from marrying their former husbands if they mutually agree on equitable terms. This instruction is for all amongst you who believe in Allah and the last day. That is the course making for most virtue and purity amongst you. And Allah knows and ye know not. The mothers shall give suck to the offspring for 2 whole years. For them who desires, for him who desires to complete the term, but he shall bear the cost of their food and clothing on equitable terms. No soul shall have a burden laid on it greater than it can bear. No mother shall be treated unfairly on account of her child, nor father on account of his child. An heir shall be chargeable in the same way if they both decide on weaning by mutual consent and after due consultation. There is no blame on them. If you decide on foster mother for your offspring, there is no blame on you, provided you pay the foster mother what he offered on equitable terms. But fear Allah and know that Allah sees well what you do. If any of you die and leave widows behind, they shall wait concerning themselves 4 months and 10 days. When they have fulfilled their term, there is no blame on you if they dispose of themselves in a just and reasonable manner, and Allah is well acquainted with what ye do. There is no blame on you if ye make an indirect offer of betrothal or hold it in your hearts. Allah knows that you cherish them in your hearts, but do not make a secret contract with them, except that you speak to them in terms honorable, nor resolve on the tie of marriage till the term prescribed is fulfilled. And know that Allah knoweth what is in your hearts, and take heed of Him, and know that Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. There is no blame on you if you divorce women before consummation or the fixation of their dower, but bestow on them a suitable gift, the wealthy according to his means and the poor according to his means. A gift of reasonable amount is due from those who wish to do the right thing. And if you divorce them before consummation, but after the fixation of a dower for them, then the half of the dower is due to them, unless they remit it, or the man's half is remitted by him in whose hands is the marriage tie. And the remission of the man's half is the nearest to righteousness. And do not forget liberality between yourselves, for Allah sees well all that you do. Guard strictly your habit of prayers. Okay, so from this verse onwards, we are moving to a different topic. So this was about the divorce issues, which has been discussed in details in the Quran in Surah Baqarah, chapter number 2, up to verse number 237. So we will discuss about this particular passage in an easy way so that it's very easy for all of us to follow and understand. But we will do so after a short break, inshallah.